just to overstart again, I'm very honored and we are very happy that you gave this opportunity to us to speak together and to speak about the revolution here in Rojava and to get to know each other a little bit more and to see how we can, in the tradition of internationalism, how we can continue to even more unite our struggles from Rojava to Malaysia to other parts in this world. And yeah, of course, this is how you say, like one big part of this revolution, of the revolution in Rojava itself, to be an internationalist revolution. And that's how we understand it. And that's how we see the project of Rojava, the project of this revolution, and the perspective of this revolution as well. So, of course, like you said, like you gave the name to this webinar today, Rojava Revolution Beyond Nation State. Actually, that's exactly what this revolution is about. So to overcome the idea of just the nation states, to clarify the system of this world, but to overcome this and to find solutions and alternatives to the system that the rulers over the last 200 years have tried to force upon us, all over the world, but especially in the Middle East, here in Rojava, in Syria, in Kurdistan, where we can see it. Now, maybe our time for today is a little bit limited and we're not going to be able to speak about everything for all the different topics that actually discussion is needed for, to give the necessary answers to it, but we will try our best to give at least an outlook about what is happening here and what has happened here over the last years, and what we are right now struggling with, what we are right now, the challenges that we are confronted with, the struggles that we are into right now here in Rojava, and yeah, the different contradictions as well that this revolution is happening inside of, and that this revolution tries to deal with, and the contradiction that it tries to solve, and the problems it tries to solve. We're going to try to speak a little bit about this. As you see, maybe before that, I was introduced by the comrades of by the comrades that are hosting this webinar. And myself, I wrote something in the chat, maybe you saw it. So my name is Şoreş Ronahî, and I'm a member of the revolutionary youth here in Syria, and member and spokesperson of the internationalist commune of Rojava. I guess when we want to start with this webinar, I guess probably most of you have done already some research about Rojava, have been active a little bit about Rojava, have maybe read some things about this revolution and the project that we are following here in Rojava. And yeah, according to this, we want to give a short outlook on that. So like you know, Rojava, actually the name Rojava is the Kurdish name, or the Kurdish pronunciation for West Kurdistan. So the western part of Kurdistan, like you know, Kurdistan is a country located in the region of the old Mesopotamia, especially Upper Mesopotamia, and today divided into 4 different states here, into Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And the Syrian part in northern Syria, for the Kurds, has always been referred to as Rojava, so the western part of Kurdistan, as it is divided into 4 different parts, so the north, the south, the west, and the east. Yeah, and this, more or less, of course, it's on the one hand not so small, but on the other hand, compared to many other places in this world, this more or less small place of land here in Western Kurdistan in northern Syria over the last 9 years, has been the place of an important revolutionary struggle in the 21st centuries. So how did this revolution start? What were the ideas when this revolution started? And what happened throughout those last 9 years? We want to give a short historical overview about this. And then we will continue with the achievements of this revolution. Yani, what for us, as we are here part of the revolutionary struggle, what do we define as the major achievements of this revolution, and the challenges we are confronted with, and how we are going to face these challenges here, and how we can face them together worldwide, internationally. So like you know, in 2011, not only in Syria, but many other countries in the Middle East, a popular uprising of the people starting from Tunisia, going over to Egypt, and many other countries here in the Middle East. Libya as well has been confronted with this. Syria too. So in Syria, the people started to rise up against the regime against the Assad regime. And from the beginning on, it was not so, how you say, like in just one way uprising or a one way revolution with one opposition against the Syrian Assad regime or so on. No, but it was from the beginning with many different political parties, many different political fractions, movements, people with different motivations and reasons to participate in those struggles. And of course, the Kurdish people as well started to organize with the beginning of those uprisings in the regions that are mostly where mostly the Kurds live in. So demographically are parts of what we call Kurdistan, are parts of what we call Rojava. But before we continue with this, we need, of course, to say that the struggle here in Kurdistan, the struggle in Rojava, the fundaments of this revolution, they were not laid just in 2011. So it was not just suddenly uprising and chaos starting, and then the people organized and the revolution started. But there was, of course, how you say, like, there was a fundament and there was a historical way that led to throughout the last decades, that led to the situation where we here in Rojava were able to put this revolution into practice. Actually, the start of this began with the popular uprising of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, which maybe you have heard of. And there, Abdullah Öcalan, who built and founded the PKK and started to work for a solution of the Kurdish question, for a liberation of Kurdistan, analyzing that Kurdistan is occupied. Kurdistan is occupied as a is not only occupied but as well colonized, and for that reason has to liberate itself. And since actually 79 until 99, when Abdullah Öcalan was captured and brought to the prison island in İmralı in Turkey, from 79 to 99, Abdullah Öcalan was organizing the academies of this movement, first in Lebanon with the Palestinian movement, and then later on in Damascus, where the place of the academy was. So actually he was for 20 years here in Syria, and there has been a lot of work done throughout those 20 years with the people here in Rojava, with the society here, as well the Kurds and the Arab population and so on. Thousands of thousands of people here, young men, young women, in the 80s, in the 90s, joined the guerrilla struggle in northern Kurdistan against Turkey, thousands of them. And so there has always been a deep connection to the struggle for liberation. There has been a huge experience of revolutionary struggle, a huge experience of how to organize, of how to struggle, and of course this came to use when in 2011 the circumstances in Syria just suddenly changed, and a power vacuum came up, and the people were confronted with either being confronted with huge chaos or organizing themselves and taking the power for themselves. And that's actually how the revolution in 2011 here in Rojava started. So in Aleppo, in Afrin, in Jizire Canton, in Kobani, the people started to organize, to build up people's councils, to build up communes, to build up and to start to organize themselves in their quarters, in their villages, in their cities, and to build up some kind of alternative system to the existing state system of the Assad regime. And then with some preparation and some experience gained and so on, in 2012, actually on the 19th of July, the people in Kobani, they started to drive out the forces of the Assad regime and occupied all the buildings of the state institutions, of the government's institutions, started to occupy them. And that's actually where we say, okay, this is the day when the revolution started. So we call it the Rojava Revolution as well, the revolution of the 19th of July. The 19th July revolution, because there it's when the first time we actually took action in the way of driving out the state institutions and building up our own institutions, instead of having the state here to build up our own institutions. People councils were built, people's courts were set up, different institutions for this revolution were being built up. The People's Protection Forces, YPG, and later on the Women's Protection Forces, YPG, were founded. And in this way, step by step, the revolution spread to all the regions of Rojava. So after Kobani, Afrin followed. After Afrin, Sheikh Massoud, big quarter in Aleppo that still until today is governed by the self-administration and not by the Syrian regime in Aleppo, the quarter Sheikh Massoud. Then later on, spreading to the Jizire canton, so from Derik to Kamishlo to Serikaniye to Hasake, all the regions were liberated from the Syrian Assad regime, and we started to govern ourselves. And that's actually how the birth of the so-called self-administration of Rojava, the self-administration of northeastern Syria. That's a little bit how it started. Then quickly actually, the situation changed. So on the 19th of July in 2012, when in Kobani the revolution started, on the one hand, it was the desire of the people to not accept the occupation anymore, not to accept the rule of the government, the rule of the state anymore, but to rule themselves. On the other hand, it was a reaction for the self-defense of the people. Why? Because different armed fractions of the so-called rebels, of the so-called opposition here in Syria, especially speaking of the so-called Free Syrian Army, led at that time in 2012, 2013 by the Al-Nusra Front, which actually is like the Syrian, the Syrian organization of Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the Syrian organization of Al-Qaeda, and they started to grow and to gain more control of different regions that were controlled by the so-called opposition forces, by the so-called Free Syrian Army forces, and they started to attack villages of Kobani, villages of other regions here in Rojava, and in some way the revolution as well was a reaction to this, to self-defend and to self-protect. And this is how the revolution started. As you might know, since then, actually, since the end of 2012 until today, we have been through many, many different phases of this revolution. But more or less what we can say is that from that time until today, the war has not stopped. So actually, from 2012 until today, we are continuously at war here in Rojava to defend this revolution, to be able to build up our life on our own will, and with our own project, with our own ideas, and to defend those achievements of the revolution. Since 2012, we have been at war. We have been at war with the Al-Nusra Front that's tried to attack us, especially 2012, 2013, many hard battles that have been fought on front lines in Serikaniye, in Kobani, in Afrin against the Al-Nusra Front, in some other regions here, Kamishlo, around Kamishlo, and so on. Later on, then 2014, ISIS came up. And ISIS started to threat this revolution and started to try to smash this revolution and to liquidate this revolution. So since 2014 until today, actually, even if maybe now today ISIS is not that strong anymore and the main force of ISIS has been crushed, but still they are existing. And since 2014, we are at war to defend our revolution against ISIS. What is important when we talk about all of this, because we don't have that much time, I want to say, Rojava is not just a revolution that stands for itself in the place where it is geographically, and it's not just a Syrian civil war that is taking place here, and Rojava is a part of this civil war here in Syria. If we would understand and analyze it like that, it would be wrong. Why? Because the war in Syria, not just today, but years ago, has been an international war. It has been an international war, not just a Syrian civil war, which is the reason why there are tens of different international forces by different means trying to intervene here into Syria, trying to intervene here. If it's the Americans, if it's the Israelis, if it's the Turks, if it's the Iranians, if it's the Russians, if it's the Europeans, many, many different forces that have intervened here, some with their troops, some not with their troops, some with their intelligence services, some by economical means, some other by political means, some other by diplomatical means, and so on and so on. But everybody actually, since the uprising of 2011, is trying to get something here from Syria, and is trying to put their project into practice, their project for Syria, their project for the Middle East here into practice. So it's a difficult and very complex situation that we are confronted here in Rojava. On the one side, we have the historical struggle for freedom of the Kurdish people. We have the historical and legitimate struggle for liberation of Kurdistan happening here, against especially the occupation of the Turkish state, the Turkish fascist state, which today has reached levels it has maybe never reached before, that we need to see. The threat that the Turkish fascist state today is not only the threat that it is for the Rojava Revolution, but the threat that it is for any emancipatory, for any revolutionary ideal in the Middle East, and maybe even worldwide. So there are different forces here on the ground that are fighting for control. It's on the one side the imperialist forces that have their project, so the NATO, the Americans, the Israelis, that have their project for greater Middle East, that they want to design for themselves, for their own interests, for their profits, and want to give it a design. And we know the strategy of the Americans, and we know the strategy of the NATO. It has been for a long time like that, and today it's the same, to have, they call it some kind of creative chaos, to have some kind of creative chaos, to use this chaos for their own profits and for their own interest. On the other side, we have other imperialist forces, not only the NATO, the Americans, but other imperialist forces like, for example, the Russian Federation as well, that is trying to put their interests and profits into practice here on the ground in Syria. Then we have the regional forces that try to, in some way, hold on to the status quo that existed here before in the Middle East. Everybody wants to hold on to what they had before. So the Assad regime is like that. The Iranian state is like that. The Turkish state is like that. And some other local forces, like, for example, the KDP in southern Kurdistan, Iraq, or forces like ISIS, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and so on, that in some way try to influence the revolution from the situation in general from that side. And then we define ourselves, the Rojava Revolution, the project of Rojava, as the third way. So actually the definition that we gave to it, and this actually, the philosophical idea of it, the ideological idea of it, coming from Abdullah Öcalan, to present some kind of third way in the Middle East, to present a different solution, to represent a different way, an alternative to the problems that exist here on the ground, and to give really long-term solutions to it. And that's what we call, for example, the project of a democratic nation. So not to build new nation states, because what is the nature, the character of the Middle East for the last 200 years, since the capitalist imperialist forces have started to intervene actively into the Middle East, is what are we confronted with? They divided this world, this part of the world, the region, the Middle East, into many different nation states. Inside of those nation states, they created, they put up one ethnic group to be the ruler, and everybody else to have to follow this one ethnic group. They divided the confessions, so Muslims against Christians, Sunni against Shia, and by this they were able to put their interests, their profits into practice here on the ground. They were always able to canalize the anger of the people, the anger of the oppressed people, the anger of the colonized people, the anger of the workers, of the women, of all the oppressed people. They were always able to canalize it against the people, and not to prevent them from taking up arms, taking up their will, their struggle against the actual rulers and against the system. So this is the kind of system they created here in the Middle East. So what is the project of a democratic nation, the project of Abdullah Öcalan, of a democratic society, an ecological society, and the freedom of women? It's actually what we define as our answer to the problems here on the ground, to have a socialist alternative for the people in the Middle East. So the paradigm of a democratic society, of an ecological society, of the freedom of women, and the whole philosophical and ideological frame that is a part of that. So speaking of this, the project of a democratic nation, the philosophy of and the science of genealogy that the women's movement here is developing and improving and working on, and a communal and collective economy, all the different confessions and nationalities and ethnics living together, having the right to live their own culture, to live their own languages, to live with their own colors, and to be one by being a lot, to be one by being many. And this is actually the project that we try to put into practice here. So a new brotherhood of the people, a new sisterhood of the people here in the Middle East. Rojava is not only a revolution for the Kurdish people or by the Kurdish people. We have to understand, and we have to see this. Definitely the Kurdish people have played a major avant-garde role in this revolution and in this struggle, and are doing this until today. And definitely there are certain national interests of the Kurdish people in this revolution. So to be able to live as a nation, to be able to speak their language, to be educated in their own language, to live their culture, and to have the right to politically organize themselves. But it's not only a Kurdish revolution, it's a revolution of the people here in Mesopotamia, of the people of the Middle East. It's an alternative not only for the small striped region of northern Syria, but it's for all four parts of Kurdistan. It's for Turkey, it's for the Iran, it's for Iraq, it's for Syria, it's for the Christians, the Muslims, the Arabs, the Kurds, the Armenians, the Syriacs, the Assyrians, the Chaldeans, the Chechens. There are so many different ethnics, people, languages, cultures, and so on that live here on this land and in this country and in this region. And the Rojava Revolution tries to give an answer to this from many, many different sides. Like we said, the upbuilding of this revolution has always been confronted with the threat of occupation and liquidation by different occupying forces, by forces like ISIS, by the Turkish state, and so on. And it is like that today. So when we talk about on the achievements of this revolution and the challenges that this revolution is confronted with, then we have to always remind that and not to forget that. So the second that we are speaking here right now with each other, the cities of Ain Isa, the cities of Tiltemer, of Zirgan, that are not far away from where I am right now, are being bombed by the Turkish state. Right now, in this second that we are speaking to each other, Serikaniye, Girespi, Afrin are under occupation of the Turkish fascists. The second that we are right now speaking to each other in southern Kurdistan, the imperialist deal of the Americans, the Iraqis, and the KDP against the self-administration of Shengal, they try to put into practice, and they try to drive out the revolutionary forces out of Shengal and to destroy the self-administration that came up after Shengal was defended heroically by our people from ISIS that attacked Shengal and made it another place of a genocide against the Yazidi people. Right now, this second that we are speaking with each other, our comrades in the mountains, the guerrilla, they are being bombed, they are being attacked by the Turkish fascists, by the mercenaries, by the collaborators in southern Kurdistan that are working with the fascists. Right now, the second that we are speaking with, in the 10,000s of prisoners in Turkey, Kurds, Turks, Arabs, socialists, Democrats, revolutionaries, different journalists, politicians, parliamentarians that are in prison are in a struggle, in a hunger strike to end this fascist regime and to end the isolation of Abdullah Öcalan, to end the isolation of the prisoners. So how you say, like, we are right inside of the revolution. The revolution is nothing that happened in 2012, and since then we are living like this, and we have built up everything in a very beautiful way. No, we are at war. We are at revolution. We are at war against fascism, and we are at war with against occupation, and we are at war with this nation state system that the imperialists have set up here after Sykes-Picot, after the First World War here in the Middle East. And that's what we are struggling with, and that's what we are struggling against, and that's what we try to solve with our alternatives of a democratic nation, and that's what we try to put into practice day by day here on the ground in Rojava. So there are huge achievements of this revolution, like, for example, a total new education system for the schools. In all different languages. So before there was only Arabic of the program of the Syrian Arab Republic, but today there is education from first class to 12th class in Kurdish, in Arabic, in Syriac, in Armenian, different languages, and a new program and all the material. This is and thousands of teachers that developed inside of this revolution to be able to do this. This is a huge achievement of this revolution. Another one, the women's revolution here. The women's revolution that is an essential part of our struggle here and of the revolution here. So everywhere, in all the different structures, all the different institutions, all the different councils, the women organizing autonomously, building up a strong force inside of this revolution. If militarily in the YPG, if politically, if in society, if in all the different structures, this women's revolution is there, and it has changed a lot in society. I mean, what the society, how it was working 10 years ago and today is not the same. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you sometimes read the news about, for example, what the Assad regime sometimes is saying about here and about Syria. Like, they are always saying, we will again be the rulers of all Syria, just like before 2010, and so on and so on. But there is a truth that we all need to see, and that is, of course, that Syria, with all the bad and all the good. So, of course, there are bad sides of it and there are good sides of it, but Syria is not the same like it was in 2010. The people are not the same like in 2010. The society is not the same. The mentality is not the same. What the people experienced, the hard work, the hardship, the suffering, and the joy of the struggle and the revolution and of victory, those are all things that are not going to be just, how you say, like, reset it to zero, and we go back to what has been before. So we need to see that, of course, the society has changed a lot in this revolution and in the struggle in Rojava and all over Syria. This is a huge achievement of this revolution. Another one is the democratical participation of the people, before the revolution, for tens of years, people, especially Kurds living here in Rojava, they did not have paper. They did not have any recognition of their existence. They were people without a state. They were registered like refugees without any sign of where they had come from and where they are originally from. But with this revolution, all the people got the possibility to organize themselves, to participate in decision processes, if in their village, if in their how you say, in their quarter, in their city, in the district that they live in the region that they live in, they have the right and the possibility to participate openly, to organize openly, to work openly, which is definitely a huge achievement of this revolution that we can speak about. And the next one is that until today, we were able to defend this revolution against all the attempts of occupation in military ways and in economical ways and in political ways, because the attacks against this revolution are not only military, but they are ideologically, they are politically, they are economically, and so on. So there is an embargo on the one side that we are confronted with, which is why we are, for example, not able to bring the necessary machinery into Rojava that we need to build up our own independent economy, our own independent industry that we could build up here for ourselves, because there is an embargo, for example. Just to give some like short examples, the next one is that this war is being fought with very dirty means. Let's say, for example, the Turkish state occupied Serikaniye today. Very important water resources for the whole region lay in Serikaniye, in the region of Serikaniye. So now they are in the hand of the Turkish fascists, those water resources. They cut off the water of some cities like Hasaki. So this summer, for example, Hasaki for a long time was without any water. So the hardship of this revolution is continuing, the struggle is continuing, the threat against this revolution is continuing, but resistance is continuing as well. We are not in a situation where we are just defending ourselves, where our situation, like we would, like we, I don't know, we are with our backs to the wall or something like that. No, we have many different opportunities, and we have many perspectives, we have many different plans, and we are at an offensive right now against fascism by any means necessary, and we are not going to stop. That's something we can definitely guarantee you, friends, and you comrades as well. We're not going to stop until we are not going to smash Turkish fascism, until we are not going to drive out the fascists, the occupiers, out of Serikaniye, out of Girespi, out of Afrin once more. Until we are not going to liberate those regions, we're not going to stop. Our struggle is a struggle for the liberation of the people, is a struggle for freedom. So it's how you say, like, it's a struggle that we are deep from our hearts committed to, because we believe in it, we believe in this cause, and because we are committed to our fallen comrades that fought against ISIS, that fought against al-Nusra, that fought against the Syrian regime, that fought against the Turkish state and gave their lives to defend this revolution. And we are committed to them until the end, and we are going to hold high the flag of our fallen comrades to continue the way that they have marched on. Yeah, this is our cause, and that is what we are that is what we are trying to focus on, and that is what we are trying to give meaning on. There's really, to be honest, there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say, and a lot that we need to speak about. I guess there's going to be some discussion. There are probably going to be some questions. Just to say, Anja, I'm going to be happy to answer any questions that there are going to be. If it's about the system we are trying to build here up, if it's about the society, if it's about the problems, if it's about the occupation, if it's about the embargo, the economical solutions we try to find, whatever questions you have, we will be very happy to answer them. Just one thing before we say that, of course, now we need to ask ourselves, for example, why is all of this important, and why is all of this important for example, Malaysia? What is the importance of this revolution, and what can it give to us? Like you may have seen, like I'm myself part of the project of the Internationalist Commune in Rojava, which we built up since 2016, actually. Because since 2014, when the war of Kobani took place, actually around the revolution of Rojava, an international movement of solidarity came up and developed and started to organize itself in many different parts of the world, which was very important to see for us here from Rojava, and that we wanted to give an answer to as well, and which is why, for example, something like the Internationalist Commune of Rojava we built up. Rojava, the idea of it, the philosophy and the ideology of Abdullah Öcalan, the problems that we are facing, the attacks that we are facing, and the solutions we try to find, they are not things that are just binded to this small region, to Rojava and Syria, but they are in many, many ways basic questions that we can ask ourselves in other parts of this world as well. We can ask ourselves those questions in Europe. We can ask ourselves those questions in let's say, for example, Argentina. We can ask ourselves those questions in Malaysia as well. Why? Because there are certain things that that are common in this capitalist world, problems that we are confronted with in this capitalist world, in this world that is really in a how you say, like in a fixed way, organized by nation states, and the idea of a nation state and the idea of nationalism, the idea of the mentality of racism, the mentality of patriarchy, and we try to find basic answers for that here, and to find solutions for that. So this revolution is an international revolution. The struggle is an international struggle, and to fight against Turkish fascism, to fight against capitalism, is a global duty and a global cause. And the defending Rojava Revolution is not only because the character of this war is an international war. That is why defending this revolution is an international cause and is an international struggle that we need all to do together, where we need to take each other hands, where we need to shoulder to shoulder to fight together and to struggle together. And that's what we can start with. And I hope this was okay for the beginning. And of course, we are happy to answer questions, whatever there is. Thank you.
Şoreş, I think, thank you. It was a very inspiring sharing, and I think it's quite amazing, you know, in that part of the world when something like this is possible. My question is rather that in Middle East, the major ideology would be either religion or nationalist kind of ideology, and that would be the dominant factor which will bring the people together. And I would like to know, in this case of this struggle, what has brought the people together?
What brought the people together? That's, of course, it's a good question. But the answer is not so easy. So the answer is not so easy because struggle and revolution, and it's difficult, Yanni, it's difficult, it's not easy. Things don't come just by themselves, but they need to be organized. You need to work for them day by day with small steps. So yeah, we have very big aims and very big goals in this revolution, but how do we get to them? We are very well aware that for that it's necessary just to do to do small steps and hard work day by day with the people, from face to face, organizing wherever you can. Yeah, and this revolution, actually, it happened like that. So, but of course there are things that bring the people together. Like the one thing definitely that I mentioned in the beginning, maybe I did not have the time really to explain well enough, is the tradition and the experience of a decade-long struggle here in Kurdistan, led by Abdullah Öcalan, led by the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK. This is a big factor, and that we need not to forget and to underestimate in this revolution, because the people here, thousands, 10,000s of them, they had organized as a part of the struggle before this revolution came up in 2011. And women's participation in the struggle has been strong from the beginning on of the struggle of the, not only here in Rojava, but all in Kurdistan, in the Kurdistan Workers' Party. So for example, especially from the beginning of the 90s ongoing, thousands and 10,000s of women joined the guerrilla in the mountains fighting against the Turkish state, against the Turkish military. And until today, it's like that. And it has not only, it's not only in numbers a big participation, but theoretic in the theory, in the ideology, in the philosophy, in the paradigm of the basic understanding of us as a revolutionary movement. How do we work? How do we live? What do we want? How can we live together? How can we overcome all of those things in system? How can we change our personalities to so that a free society, a liberated society can develop? All of those questions and all of those things are a current part of our struggle and of our discussions and of what we try to build up. So those are important parts that we need to say for that. The other thing is, like I said, the oppression of the enemies of this revolution, the attacks of different groups like ISIS, like Al-Nusra, the occupation of the Turkish state. That's another thing that brings the people together. It brings the people together in the resistance to defend their own homeland, to defend their own houses, to defend their own families. And that's where the people in this sense are getting together. The other thing is that for years now, we are working on the thing to overcome the separation that the nation state system has created here in the society. So Kurds hating Arabs, Arabs hating Kurds, Muslims hating Christians, Christians hating Muslims, Sunni hating Shia, Shia hating Sunni, and so on and so on. And for years now, we are very actively working on how to overcome this. And this has become a basic principle of this revolution, the brotherhood of the people, that everybody, with their religion, with their culture, with their language, is worth for living, is worth to have a voice, is worth to organize themselves and to be able to be part of this society, not just to have different parallel societies living next to each other, but having everybody with their different cultures and different languages to be able to live together and to share this with each other, which is very important. So I don't know, we can give very simple examples for that. Let's say, for example, before the revolution here, it would basically not have been possible that you would have seen an Arab speaking Kurdish, for example. Of course, Kurds, because their language was not allowed and they were just from being a child in the schools being risen with the Arabic language, were able to speak Arabic, but not so good as well, because most people would not finish school. They would get out of school early. They would remain analphabets. They would start to work early in their lives, hard work as children and so on. But that has changed now. Now you have Kurdish children speaking Kurdish and Arabic, knowing to write Arabic and Kurdish. You have Arabs as well, learning how to speak Kurdish and learning how to write Kurdish at the same time, not forgetting about their own culture, not forgetting about their own language. And I think really, even if, I don't know, the enemies of this revolution, the different intelligence services that are working against this revolution and trying to make provocations and create chaos and so on, even with all of that, many people are really thankful for this perspective that this revolution and this idea of a democratic nation gave to them. Yeah, how you say, like, there are many different things that are bringing the people together and made a revolution like this possible here. But I personally believe that it's definitely, it has a lot of things here have to do with the conditions and the situation here and historical moments where the right steps and the right decisions were being made so that the revolution was able to develop like this. Definitely that has to do with it. We cannot deny that. And everywhere in this world is not the same. Everywhere is different and the conditions are different. But with the necessary effort and with a strong will and a strong commitment, the belief for the struggle for freedom, everywhere it's possible to achieve great things and to build up socialism. That's what I'm convinced of, and that's how we will be able to bring the people together, by hard working day by day with the people together and being one with the people. Thank you.
I think many of the ideas that you mentioned about, you know, being democratic and not being ethnic and being inclusive is what we all believe in as well. But I'd like to know practically, how are you marketing the idea? I mean, how are you spreading the idea? Are we talking about autonomous regions within Syria and within Turkey and within Iraq, but still within those countries, but with some degree of autonomy to implement the changes that you want? Is that the political solution that the Rojava Revolution is suggesting, or a separate state that is carved out from these four countries and a separate nation, Kurdistan? So how is that being put across to the population? And what is the buy-in, you know, the non-Kurds in all these four countries? How is their perception of, and how is their acceptance of the demands of the Rojava Revolution? Thanks, Comrade.
Since the beginning of this revolution, we have never, like, this is an important thing. So we fully, as this movement, have denied the idea of a nation state. So just to make that clear. So our goal is not to build up a separate nation state. And we, since the beginning of this revolution, we have never ever, and the institutions of this revolution that are responsible for those works have never denied or have never said that they are not willing to get into dialogue with, for example, the Syrian state, the Assad regime, with, I don't know, the opposition, with the Turkish state, with others, with other states, and so never have denied it or never have said that they are not ready for it. The opposite of it actually is the case. For example, in Rojava here, it has always been the aim to get into dialogue with the Syrian state and to find solutions for how we are going to be able to together democratize Syria. How are we going to be able to together build up a new Syria based on where the problems that created this chaos here in the region, and how are we going to be able to solve them in a way that it's good for the people. And our suggestion for that is a democratic nation. And yes, that means some kind of confederal system inside of the state. The state can exist still. Maybe, I don't know, like, of course, how you say, like our ideal would be that there is no states anymore, that there is freedom and so on. But as you were asking, like the political solution that we are suggesting here from Rojava, what is it? Yes, it's definitely to have autonomy, but what kind of autonomy? What kind of autonomy? That is important. So, for example, what does the Syrian state now say a lot of times to our comrades? They say, let's say, for example, okay, we are going to give you cultural autonomy. So I don't know, you're going to be able to speak Kurdish in Rojava. You're going to be able to, I don't know, listen to Kurdish music in Rojava, stuff like that. But they are 100% denying the political will that has been pronounced by the people here since 2011, and the way how the people politically have organized here and have managed to self-administrate themselves over the last 8-9 years. And of course, we are not willing to give up the achievements of our revolution, and we are going to defend those achievements that I managed when I was talking about it earlier. Those achievements we will defend to the last. We will defend it to even the last, like how you say, drop of blood that we have. We are ready to defend the achievements of our revolution, but we are ready to get into dialogue and to find common solutions, and to, if necessary, to make compromises on certain topics as well, but not compromises that are not compromises, not a dialogue, not an agreement that is not accepting the political will and autonomy of the people that are organizing themselves. So this is important for us. When we talk about, for example, a democratic Syria, we don't talk about just a centralistic state that gives some cultural autonomy to the people in the different regions, but we talk about political, how you say, political participation on the level of being part in the decision making of the people, so that the people in their villages are able to decide about the life in their villages, that the people in their city are able to decide about the life in the city, that the people in a certain region are able to decide about the life in this region, and in a confederal way, that all those different regions, all those villages, and that they come together and create of course, some kind of general policy and general political mean of the society all over together. But certain principles for that are necessary. So certain principles, for example, that everybody needs to be able to have a voice, everybody needs to be able to organize themselves, everybody needs to be able to speak their language, to be educated, to have education in their mother tongue, to live the religion that they are living. So if it's Christian, then Christian, if it's Muslim, then Muslim, if it's Shia, then Shia, if Sunni, then Sunni. That is important. So those are very basic things that can either, if done the one way, they can poison society. If done in the other way, they can create an atmosphere of peaceful existence together. That's what maybe I can say about this.
Comrade, what is the buy-in by non-Kurds, for example, in Syria, non-Kurdish citizens of Syria, how many of them would share your vision of this kind of a democratic, universal, inclusive society? Are there people like that who would work with you on this kind of a project?
Yes, definitely. Of course, there are a lot of comrades from different nationalities that are working on this project, and we are working on that together. So how you say, like, there are Kurds that are with this revolution, and there are Kurds that are against this revolution. So there are Kurds that are working for the revolution, and there are Kurds that are working against this revolution. There are Arabs that are with this project of a democratic nation, and there are Arabs that are against this project of a democratic nation. And this is for, let's say, all the nationalities here that live here on this land, more or less the same. Like I said, maybe yes, the revolution, how it started and who has been, like, who has participated the most, maybe if we would say in numbers or so, maybe we could say, yes, definitely this revolution started in the Kurdish regions. Yes, definitely the Kurdish people are the ones that have taken a leading role in this revolution, just because of the historical struggle they have put through over the last 3-4 decades. On the other hand, there are today many regions that are part of the self-administration of northeastern Syria, like Raqqa, like Deir ez-Zor, like Minbij, and other parts here that are self-administered and that are not Kurdish regions. They are mostly Arab populated regions, and people there as well are organizing, people there as well are participating. Many women have, for the first time in their lives, in history of their regions, for the first time in history of the tribes or of the families that they are part of, have started to organize themselves autonomously, have started to put out their voice autonomously, and have built up a strong will to continue like that. It's not only the People's Protection Forces or the Women's Protection Forces here in Rojava, but since 2016-17, the Syrian Democratic Forces have been built up, which is like an alliance, a military alliance of different forces that are part of this project of the self-administration, that are part of this project of what we have been talking here about today. And there, the YPG and the YPJ, they are part of that. On the other hand, Arab forces, like especially Arabic forces, some forces that are related to a certain tribe, and so on. The YPG itself, it's not a 100% Kurdish force. It's like it's a mixed force of different nationalities, different ethnics that are here. I myself, I have for for long time fought with, for example, Arab comrades in the same trenches against ISIS, and we, how you say, like we had the best times of our lives together. So how you say, it's not just a theory that we are bringing the people together, but really it's something that is happening. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to make it really like that understandable just by words. One needs to actually see and live through it as well to even better see that. Yes. But how you say, like maybe the friend was saying, of course, maybe there are some friends that might, some comrades here that might be maybe new in the topic as even. But of course, there is a lot that people can make research about this as well. There's a lot of literature, different websites people can make analysis on. We as the revolutionary youth, as the internationalist commune of Rojava, for example, we have our websites as well that can be checked by you guys to maybe make some yeah, how you say, like to get more deeper look into what's happening here. There is a campaign actually that we have. The name of the campaign is Rise Up for Rojava. It's a campaign that we, as the in the name of Internationalist Commune of Rojava, are a part of, which might be interesting for the comrades as well, because in this campaign, every month we are giving certain, how you say, like evaluations of the political and military situation here on the ground, and to even more understand the situation here, the different contradictions and the different projects of the different forces here in Syria and in the Middle East. We try to explain in a more detailed way in those evaluations. So I can just recommend that. I will put now the links of those websites into the chat as well.
You have mentioned there's many challenges in terms of constantly being under attack militarily, and there is also economically, there's some embargoes and so on. So actually, who would be your immediate allies to support this ongoing struggle? Are there any groups with in neighboring countries, Arab countries, who are supporting you, and also in terms of giving you the supplies and to keep you going in this struggle? I mean, how do you sustain in terms of economically and also getting a supplies to keep fighting? So who would be allies, and how do you keep sustain this struggle that you're fighting now?
Yes. Well, good questions there from you, comrade. How can I say? Of course, on the one side, the question about allies, it's a difficult thing, because we have, of course, in meaning of Syria, there is, for example, the Syrian Democratic Council that has been built up here in the region, and that is a part that is, how you say, like a kind of, you could say, alliance of or coalition of different organization, parties, institutions, and so on, that exist here as well in northeastern Syria and other parts of Syria. Besides that, of course, there are certain allies, but how to say, like strategical allies, long-term allies that are allies of this project, for us are the democratic, socialist, revolutionary forces in the region and worldwide. So whoever, in this sense, is a part of a struggle against this capitalist system and against the project of the local occupiers and the international imperialists is for us a strategical or a potential strategical ally. This on the one hand. The other hand is, of course, because, like I said, it's a very, very complex situation here in the region. You know by yourself, Yanni, you know a little bit about Rojava, and you can see it by yourself very easily. For example, 2014, since the war for Kobani, the liberation of Kobani took place, America, for example, the US has started to, up to a certain level, to build up some kind of tactical military alliance, first with the YPG and later on today with the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF. And of course, this is how you say, like, it's a critical alliance because it's not a strategical alliance, not for them and not for us. Okay, they have their profits and interests. We have our ideas and perspectives for this land and for this country and for our people and for the future of this revolution, of course, and they are contradictory to each other. But on certain, for certain tactical short-term aims, a certain way of, how you say, like, taking advantage from each other has happened and is happening right now as well here. It's a very, very complex and difficult situation. Just about, how you say, like, about a month ago, about a month ago, for example, we wrote, in the name of International Commune, we wrote a short essay about anti-imperialism in the 21st century, and to try to look a little bit at the paradigms of an anti-imperialist struggle in the 21st century and what is common to before and what has changed, and how can we deal with that and how can we give answers to that in our times today. And it's difficult, definitely, because we are surrounded by, let's say, more or less enemies of this revolution. The Turkish state, the Syrian state, different Islamist groups and mercenaries of the Turkish state and so on that are trying to attack us. The imperialists like America having a different project and different ideas for our region here, for the region of the revolution. And definitely we try to build good alliances up for that, but we how you say, like, financing this revolution, financing the war, getting the proper equipment for that and so on, it's something we have been struggling with since the beginning of this war and of this revolution until today. And it's not one solution that has been found for that. There are different ways how this is happening. I would say, like, of course there's oil here in this region, but who buys oil of a non-state? Nobody buys oil of a non-state. That's something everybody needs to know as well. So you're not able to sell anything. You're not able to buy anything in your name. Because of an embargo, you can only get things that people want you to get and not the things that people not want you to get. And of course, there to find ways and means on how to get around that, on how to survive economically, militarily, and so on. This has always been a major question for us, and it's something that we are working on today as well, on by different means. And it's nothing that one solution has been found for, and now we don't have those problems anymore. The solution would be what? The solution would be international acknowledgement of the self-administration. And solution would be, how you say, like, for example, dialogue with the Syrian state and an agreement between the self-administration and the Syrian state. But this until today has not happened. because what they want from us, we cannot accept. What we want to achieve, they are not accepting. So it's something that right now is continuing. But our strategy of this revolution, we call it revolutionary people's war. And what revolutionary people's war in this time of the struggle is for us, is that we first rely on ourselves, that the strongest ally that we have is our people. And for that reason, we need to, if we are able to organize communally in the communes, in the villages, in the quarters, in a good way, then we are going to be able to defend ourselves, and we are going to be able to survive. Everything else, acknowledgement, allies outside, and so on, that comes then with that. Maybe that's a little bit how we can put it. But definitely for us, the strategical allies, even if they are not strong, even if they are weak in this world, are the democratic socialist revolutionary forces and nobody else. Like I said before, of course, we don't only, we're not only waiting for a dialogue to become good between us and the Syrian state, but of course we are working on to try to establish better, longer, stronger connections with the people all over Syria and in all the different regions over Syria. Actually, for a matter of fact, because of the situation in Syria, for example, hundreds of thousands of people from other cities of Syria, other regions of Syria, throughout the last years, they have come here to northern Syria, and they have settled down here, and they are living here right now, and are part of, many of them are a part of the struggle and of the revolution here. Yes, we are definitely, there is, how you say it, for us, the part of, or the matter of class struggle and organizing the working classes, the oppressed classes here in Syria, in the region, for this revolution is definitely an important part of our struggle. How you say, like, but the way how we do it is not like, it's not like just focusing on the one working class, because it's difficult sometimes because the regions are different from each other. In every region, the people are not living under the same circumstances, the same in the same situations. Especially here in northern Syria, we do not have a really how you say, like, big industry or something like that, where you could say, okay, this is now the place where the classical working class, the classical proletariat is living and working and so on, and we're going to organize them now. But it's mostly, for example, it's peasants, it's agriculture. The economy is very fundamental. The most fundament of the economy here is agriculture, and everything else comes after agriculture. And of course, due to that, people are mostly living in villages, not that much in cities. Of course, cities exist as well, but they are not like that big metropolises like otherwheres in the world. Of course, Damascus is something else. Damascus is a very, very big city, but besides Damascus, all the other cities are not that big. Most has been destroyed by the war as well. So industrial areas that existed were destroyed by the war. If it's around Aleppo, for example, if it's here in other parts of northern Syria, and so in the industry that existed was mostly destroyed, or is very old now and has just expanded its time. Yani, how you say, like, it's become very old, and it's difficult to being continued like that. So how you say, we are struggling in this sense on many different levels to as well to try to organize a working independent economy here in northern Syria, and on the other hand to connect, of course, with other struggling people, other communities in Syria to build a common front for a democratic Syria. And that's what's being tried on different levels. So diplomatic level, organizing level, and so on. That's what I can say. Try to show a little bit about this. The thing is, Kurdistan as a geographical and cultural entity might be separated into 4 different parts, but what is happening in one part of this geographical entity that has been separated from each other has direct influence on all the other 4 parts, and on the people living there and on the states that are occupying this part. So the Kurdish liberation struggle, the revolution in Rojava, the project of a democratic nation, the struggle against Turkish fascism, it's something that is not in one part and the other parts no, or so. It's something that has to do with all the whole Kurdish society, not only the whole Kurdish society, but the people of all different nationalities that are living here in this land. So when here in Rojava, it's clear for us, the main enemy of this revolution before anybody else is the Turkish state, it's Turkish fascism. For the Kurds and the movement in northern Kurdistan, it's clear like the main enemy of them to be able to organize autonomously and to organize democratically, it's the Turkish state, it's the Turkish fascists, the ones that are occupying here in Rojava, Afrin, Serikan, Girespi, the ones that are trying to occupy parts of southern Kurdistan where the guerrilla movement is based, the ones that are imprisoning 10,000s of people in northern Kurdistan and in Turkey, it's the same people, it's the Turkish state. So this movement has always had to do not just with one part, but with all the other parts. Like I said before, from Rojava, from here, in the 90s, for example, thousands, maybe 10,000s of young men and women joined the guerrilla in northern Kurdistan and fought and struggled against the Turkish army as a part of the guerrilla and gave their lives for it. Here in Rojava, more than 4,000 guerrilla fighters from the PKK fought for defending this revolution and gave their lives as a part of this revolution. Kurds from all 4 parts of Kurdistan have defended this revolution against ISIS, have defended this revolution against the Turkish state, and have given their lives here. People, not only Kurds, Arabs from Syria and from Iraq have been a part in this struggle. Christians and Muslims have given their lives to defend this revolution. Internationalists from different parts of this world, from Europe, some from Asia as well, from other countries of the Middle East, came here to Rojava and to become a part of this struggle, to learn from this revolution and to fight against the fascist forces that are trying to counter this revolution. So it's, how you say, like, it's something that is very connected with each other and nothing we can see apart from each other. So Rojava, you cannot understand separately from southern Kurdistan, for example, or from northern Kurdistan, just to say it like that. Was really a pleasure and an honor to me to have this possibility. And I would say definitely, yeah, definitely it should not be the last time that we do something like this. We can do it more, for example, when you're able to organize when it like that, when you're able to give the time for it, for example, to have it more specific, for example, not so general like today, to have it more specific on certain topics. We can have other comrades here as well, for example, like I said, of our comrades here for the women's struggle, for genealogy and so on, to speak about that, to discuss about that. And more specific on certain topics, of course, we can there then talk about questions and so on. That's the one thing. The other thing is that, yeah, I think it was really good today to have this opportunity. What can we do from now on, and how can we strengthen our struggles together? The friend said it, it's the solidarity that we can give towards each other that is strengthening us and that is giving the strength to us. Just to give an example, Yanni, it's not always needed that it's a lot that is being done. Of course, we are in a big struggle and we are confronted with huge threats of liquidation and so on. And of course, we need to do everything to confront that and to be able to resist and to resist successfully, victoriously against those attacks against our revolution. But what I want to say is, like, everybody can do something, and solidarity, even symbolic solidarity, sometimes gives a lot for the people that are fighting and struggling on the ground. Solidarity from everywhere, even if it's symbolical, gives a lot, really. Us, for example, when last year in 2019 in October, when the Turkish state was invading Serekaniye and Girespi, and we were on the front lines and like, how you say, like, on the front lines in the situation and in this war and the hardship of it. And when we were hearing about people rising up worldwide in solidarity with this resistance and in solidarity with this struggle and against Turkish fascism, it gives, how you say, like, this is what we took the strength and the motivation from, to not only just to continue, but to continue even on a higher level and to bring our struggle to the next stage and to find solutions on how to continue and on how to resist the right way and on how to get into the next offensive to liberate those regions that are occupied right now by the fascists. And that's what we are right now essentially working on. We want to build up our revolution on our paradigm of a democratic society, ecological society, and the freedom of women. And we want to smash Turkish fascism, and we are going to do everything for that. And those are, like, how you say, like, the main two strategic lines in this revolution right now that we are following. And we are calling on you to become a part of that, or to be a part of that, and to, if the ways of solidarity, to look for, yeah, different ways on how to show solidarity. And we invite you as well. Maybe it's difficult, the way might be a little bit difficult, of course, but if there is possibilities for people of you, then we invite you as well to come here to Rojava and to come for a visit, get around a little bit here in Rojava. We can show you around and so on. That's our call as well on you, to get to know what's happening here better, and we will be very happy to welcome you if you like to come. That's what we can say, and we wish the best for you. Serkeftin.